That was going through my mind, and I was really excited too to see what this ADU in the garage looked like.
Yeah.
That we could never see.
Like I said, I was just excited to get into the house. Like, I didn't care what it looked like. I wanted to get started, but I think I changed my mind once we actually entered the house.
Yeah, so let's share the screen again and show some photos, shall we?
Yeah.
You're checking out the Investor Shed Podcast with Nick Beveridge and Jeremy Kitchen. They're on the path to financial freedom, and they're taking their community with them. Stay tuned for the best free real estate investing advice on the internet.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Investor Shed Podcast. My name is Jeremy Kitchen. I am one of the hosts of the Investor Shed Podcast, here with the illustrious, magnificent Nicholas Beveridge. Nick, how are you doing today?
Doing fantastic, especially with that intro. Thank you, Jeremy.
You're welcome. Yeah. You want to make you sound magical because you're a magical human.
Ooh, especially today.
Yeah.
I'm feeling so magical.
Speaking of magical, today we got a cool episode for everybody. We have a case study into one of the flips that Nick and I have partnered on. Actually, it was my first flip that I've ever been a part of. So we're going to deep dive into that. And hopefully you guys learn what to do, what not to do, and come away with some cool tidbits from this. So.
Yeah, and we're going to be sharing our screen. If you want to see photos, if you want to check out the YouTube video of this, you'll be able to see what we're seeing here. But if you're just listening to this on audio, we will do the best to describe just how delicious this house looks.
some juicy things happened in this flip for sure, and that is not a pun. Actually, that actually happened. A lot of juice in this house. Leaking trusses, but
we had the perfect LLC name for it.
We did. Yeah. I'm sure we've went over this in previous podcasts too, but Nick and I did a joint venture, or we actually started a new LLC on this one, correct?
Yeah, this wasn't a joint venture. This was just a straight up partnership LLC.
Yep. So Moist Homes was what we started, Moist Homes LLC. We started it as a joke, but it ended up sticking because it made sense with the project, mostly because Nick's assistant at the time said it was a bad idea to name an LLC Moist Homes.
And so that made me want to just go ahead and register that name.
So that's what we did, right?
Hey, if we're going to gross people out, might as well stick to it.
Right. It's a flipping project company, so I mean, it doesn't need to be an illusion of grandeur. Basically, it just needs to be accurate of what it is.
Yeah. Some things you forget though, like when you actually put a gross name out there for an LLC. Your insurance people are going to see it. The title company is going to see it. The lender you're trying to get money from is going to see it. Everybody is going to see it. Your tenants are going to see it. It is what it is. It was funny at the moment, and then sometimes you kind of cringe too, like, oh yeah, that's Moist Homes LLC is who I have to make my rent payment to.
We have to tell people this. Small oversight, of course, but
whatever. What are you gonna do? We learn.
Yeah, no, I still enjoyed the project and enjoyed what it is. So let's kind of dive into this, Nick.
Yeah.
Where do we want to start? So
let's start from the birth of where I heard about this deal, because you were with me. I don't know if you remember. At the time, it was the summer of 2021, and I was trying to take on the world. And you were right there with me, and we were actually at a well drilling site.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah. So we were out with Blake Thompson that day, and we were shadowing well drilling because I was somewhat under contract to buy this well drilling business up in Moist Springs, Idaho, and eventually the seller decided that he wanted to keep his business after months of negotiation back and forth with an attorney. I respect his decision. Can't blame him. It's great business. Yeah. And probably good that it didn't go through anyway, because I was biting off more than I can chew.
I was going to say, like, if we took that on, that would have, like, altered the course of our next few years. Like, altered the course of our life 100%.
Maybe it would have been better.
I don't know, man. That seemed like a weird system, and he didn't have his financials straight and anything, but that's a story for another day, of course.
No, but it was a well drilling business, and they were doing pretty well.
Right.
They were doing pretty well.
Got them. I love it.
Anyway, I got a call from a wholesaler that day, and I remember we were on a lunch break, and they said, "Hey, I've got this house under contract in Coeur d'Alene, It's a manufactured home on real property, built in, I think, 1978 or 9, but it was a post HUD home, so it was built to the HUD standards, and it's on real property on a half of an acre, really large lot in the middle of the city of Coeur d'Alene, but in the county. So it wasn't under city.
Right. It wasn't annexed into the city.
It wasn't annexed into the city, but it had its own private utilities with this small community on a dirt road.
Yeah.
And it was a very interesting project because he said the words, there's also an ADU in the garage.
Potential ADU, yes.
Potential ADU. They called it an ADU.
Yeah, I call them too, I suppose. So.
They said a lot of things. And it got my attention, especially when he said, I think we're going to sell it for $215. You interested? And I was like, oh, gosh, this is the summer of 2021, and you're talking about a property in Coeur d'Alene on a half acre with an ADU in the low 200s when, when you kind of get that, all those combos, you're easily in the 400s, even if it's a fixer-upper.
Oh, yeah.
Now, granted, this is a manufactured home, but still, I just immediately saw opportunity either as a fix and flip. I didn't know how much work needed at the time, or just as a rental. And so, I said, heck yeah, I'm interested. Send me the details. And so they sent me an appraisal. They said, we've walked through it. It needs very minimal repairs. It was actually appraised just a couple of months ago, in May. And this is where I'm going to share my screen, guys. So let me pull this up here.
Yeah. We'll be describing what's happening on screen as well for those that are listening rather than watching. But just to give everyone an idea of what actually it looked like when we saw the appraisals. So,
and this is kind of important because it was my very first screw up. Not my first screw up, but it was absolutely wrong on my part just to trust. Here we go. Here's that appraisal.
And the thing is, you're supposed to trust but verify. Right?
Trust but verify.
That is something you will learn in this business. Like, trust what people say, but just double check to make sure it's right regardless.
Here's what they told me. They told me, we walked through it. It doesn't need much repairs. We even have an appraisal. You're not getting an inspection, though. Sorry. The tenants won't let anybody else in the house. Yep. You're going to have to close on it without walking through it. And that, obviously, my gut kind of wrenches just a little bit when I hear that. Like, dude, I've been kind of burned before. Not nearly as bad as we're about to talk about, but but you know what? At least there was an appraiser that walked through the house, and surely they would note if the house was destroyed or if there were some serious issues with it, because that's what appraisals usually include, that because they are required to represent the condition as well. Right. So we got this appraisal, and we're sharing it on the screen here. This property just appraised a couple of months prior to this phone call for $270,000. Yep. The reason why they had an appraisal was because the owner was just trying to do a refi, but they couldn't qualify or something like that, so they ended up just wanting to sell the house. Another thing we didn't realize about this deal until after we closed on it was that the owners were living in the backyard the whole time. Yeah. And they didn't move out necessarily right away.
Yeah. The more you know, right?
The more you know. Here's what I want to point out, though. Education on everybody's part, if you're not super familiar with appraisals. Down here when we're looking at page 3, this is where they start getting into the nitty-gritty of comparing the subject property to different comparables to get the value. Right. And one of the big subjects that they compare is the condition. And with appraisals, they have this rating system. They rated this as a C4. And you can go online and do a little research and look at the appraisal condition ratings. And ratings are set from C1 as new construction all the way down to C6, which is severe deferred maintenance. They categorize this and most of the comps as a C4, which is to be described as minor deferred maintenance. The improvements featured some small deferred maintenance and physical deterioration due to normal wear and tear. The dwelling has been adequately maintained, and requires only minimal repairs to the building and components. This is exactly what the wholesalers were telling us as well.
See, so I see this, and I see that C4 rating, Nick, and in my head, like, obviously now that we're done with the project, I think we should have just taken C4 to the property and blew it up. I think that's what they were trying to reference on that, like demo this thing, really.
And I know we're holding back a little bit, but yeah, the condition was not a C4, guys. No. Unfortunately.
Like looking at those ratings too, Nick, if I had to say what it was, like I would say it's like a 5.5 on the 5 to 6 scale, to be honest with you.
It definitely wasn't a C4, and let's get into the nitty gritty before we get into the conditions some more, but about how we found what we decided to do with this deal.
Right.
Initially, so you maybe, I don't know, within the past couple of weeks since this was brought up, you had mentioned to me that you were interested in wanting to partner on some sort of a fix and flip.
Correct.
Or rental or some sort of a deal, like you're itching to get in. And if you've heard the show before, we've talked a little bit about that. And I think at the time you said you've got 10 grand or so.
Yep.
And I said, I don't know if it's quite enough, but if you were able to raise 20, I'm sure we can find a deal.
Right.
And that was a couple of weeks before this opportunity came up. And it didn't take long for you to raise 20 grand, right?
No, not at all. And I think you're right. Like when the numbers came back, like I'm like, I got 10. Like I want to get started. I don't know how, but like obviously I wanted to partner with somebody who had the know-how, who's done deals before. I've never done a deal before, so like that was a little intimidating, right? You can't just buy something for $20,000 and not have a plan for it, or $10,000 and not have a plan for it. And that's where partnerships are just really valid and wonderful, actually. But yeah, it didn't take long to raise the extra 10. I think I sold a couple extra sports cards. Just converted my old IRA and I scrounged together the money and made it happen.
Yeah, you did it pretty quickly. And I don't know if you remember, but at first I know your parents were looking to potentially move, and I brought it up to you initially as, hey, do you think this would be good for your parents? And I guess that was a no. But then I said, "What would you be interested in partnering on this?" What was your first? Can you tell people what it was like? Getting that potential offer, and if you were hesitant at all?
Yeah. I think the things I was hesitant about, Nick, are the same things that you've mentioned, right? Like, I'm like, okay, so we're not allowed to get a walkthrough for the house.
Yeah.
And like, I had all these like red flags going off in my head, but I still saw the value of the property.
Right.
And we're looking at this, we're like, okay, it appraised 2 months ago for $270.
Yes, and we were buying it for $215.
$215, right? So I was like, okay, there's still a spread there, regardless of even if we don't fix anything. I think we can sell it on the market and make a little bit of money.
Yeah, and that's exactly where mine was too. Like, okay, let's say that this property actually does require a little bit more work than everyone's leaning on. Still, it appraised for $270.
Right.
And surely we have equity.
Right. And if we're able to make improvements along the way, like the plan with this one was supposed to be just a cosmetic flip. And if we can just make some, minor cosmetic repairs, paint, floors, new windows if it needs, whatever, just little cosmetic things. So
yeah, I don't think we were planning on doing windows.
I don't think we were.
I think initially the wholesaler said, maybe some new carpets and paint, and that's about all that they were leading on. Which usually there's always more, but carpet paint job, I kind of fluffed the numbers, and I'm like, dude, we'll probably spend 20 grand.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was the plan. We had to, I went to a hard money lender and I said, hey, I've got this deal under contract with a wholesaler. It's right in the middle of Coeur d'Alene. There's an appraisal for $270. I can send it your way. We're going to buy it for $215, and, we can put 25 grand down. We can put the wholesale fee down if we can get a loan for that, 185, 190, somewhere in there.
Yep.
And that lender agreed.
Yeah.
Almost immediately. Like, sounds great. Yeah, send me the info. And it took him about a day to get back to me and said, yeah, green light. Go for it, buddy.
Yeah.
I'll take that first position on a house that has an appraisal at $270,000, and I'm going to make a loan for almost $100 grand less.
Right. 180 was what the loan was for, right?
189 is what it ended up being.
Okay.
I looked at the closing statement.
Okay.
Yeah, so we got a loan for 189. So yeah, sorry, 80 grand less than what the appraisal is.
And if you're looking at this from like a hard money number too, like obviously the hard money lender is going to look at the loan to value on that. So it's worth 270, loan for 189. That is about a 70% after repair value, like a LTV, loan to value rate. So
yeah, he had
I could be wrong on the numbers there, but it sounds like it's workable for a lot of hard money conditions. So
and for those that don't know, an appraisal holds so much more weight than a realtor's CMA or a broker's price opinion.
Yeah, or BPO. Yeah.
An appraisal is a legit value. So they straight up will use that. And, he gave us exactly a 70% loan.
Yep, exactly.
He gave us a loan for $189,000, which was 70% of that 270. So let's dive in a little bit deeper on the numbers here.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, we talked about it a little bit earlier too, Nick, but you said some of the things I was hesitant about. It was definitely that we didn't have access to do our own appraisal.
Yeah.
We couldn't go into the house to verify any of the condition.
And we weren't going to be able to go in the house for a few months.
Yeah, because
it was rented.
Part of the deal was the tenants got to live there, so we bought it in August of 2021. We actually didn't get access to the house until December of 2021.
Yes.
I believe it was December 7th. Like, I remember that day, like, I wanted to get into my house. I wanted to see what it was, and I wanted to get going,
Yeah, and about a week before that, we got to preview it.
Yeah.
And it was like,
boy,
shoot.
We'll
Anyway, before we get into that, so again, and I know this is the fourth time I'm saying it, but we purchased it for $185,000. That's what we purchased the house for, but it seemed to us like it was $215,000 $210,000.
Yep.
Because we had to bring a $25,000 check to the wholesaler to be able to buy the option for the assignment.
Right.
To be the person to get to buy the house.
Yep. So that's just the wholesaler's fee, if you will.
Yeah. And what the wholesaler did in this scenario, instead of getting paid at closing, which is normal, they were wanting to hide that from the seller. So they asked if they can just get a cashier's check sent to their office just before closing.
Yep.
And we knew them well enough to know that they're not scam artists.
Right. No, they're a legit business.
They're a legit business. They do a lot. So we brought them a check and we agreed that, hey, if for some odd reason the sellers don't close, this is going to be refundable, right? Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, no big deal. We brought them the $25,000, and it was a cashier's check, and I sent proof of that payment to our lender to just say, hey, look, we do have skin in the game. Here's our 25 grand down. We sent it to them. He was all good with that. Okay. And then just before closing, I always forget this. We forgot about insurance.
Yep.
Needed to get it right away because we were closing in just like a day or two. And went to my regular agent at the time. And I'm gonna share my screen again here because this is funny. On you guys out there, manufactured homes, there's all kinds of reasons why you shouldn't buy them, and I'm gonna give you another one here.
What have we learned the last couple of years, Nick?
Yeah, there are a lot of reasons why not to buy a manufactured home. Here we go, sharing the screen. And here's one more reason why, and we'll get into plenty later.
Sure.
But the insurance, our initial quote was $2,172 for the year, plus another 2 months up front. That's over $2,600 for 1 year of just a basic policy on a HUD built manufactured home on real property. And that's a lot to stomach.
Yeah.
I mean, normally on a site built home, we're spending like $500 for the year or so,
Sure.
or maybe $500 for a 6-month period if they know that it's in distress. But this was a landlord's policy because it was a rental.
Yep.
This wasn't a unique insurance plan for a fix and flipper because we weren't at that stage yet. We didn't have to go above and beyond with a big policy because this was just a property that was a rental. But $2,600, ouch.
Yeah. Pretty high premium for 12 months.
Yeah. So what we did was, and I will show. Well, see. Here we go. Your wife Sam helped out with this.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks, Sam.
If you're still watching on the screen, just a few days later, even though we already closed on the home, we spent all that money to the insurance company, it's still refundable if we want to replace it with another policy, which we were able to find one for like $1,000.
Right.
Still like double what a normal insurance policy is on a rental house.
But less than half of what it was.
But way less than half of what our initial payment was. So, and then even on top of that, I was still, if you look at the email chain, I'm like, is that the best he can do?
Right. and what's crazy about this, like, you know, you don't have to take the first option that anybody offers you in any of this stuff, whether it's a contractor, an insurance bid. Shop around. If you have the time for it specifically, shop around and get the best rate with the best coverage that you need.
Exactly. Good point. Okay. So that was our experience closing on it. Wasn't too exciting. We almost forgot the insurance, but we got it. We closed. We got a hard money loan. It was super easy because the numbers, to everybody's knowledge, made sense.
Right. And it was also easy because, you know, we have these relationships with these hard money lenders and brokers, right? I think if you were a normal person who's never had a phone call with these lenders, I think it might have been a little more difficult.
Yeah.
But then again, that's just a relationship based built that the hard money lenders like. So
yeah. So one of the big things that we were kind of missing after we closed on it was still kind of a solid plan. Like what are we going to keep this house? Are we going to fix it up and flip it? Like we still weren't sure about that because the market was just at the time where it was late summer 2021. It was just on rampant fire. And rents were going sky high, prices were going high. We just knew that we had this little golden nugget here sitting that once we get access to this house, we can fix it up a little bit and we can rent it out in cash flow, or we can fix it up and resell it, and we just weren't really sure still. But it's a good idea to have a plan, a solid plan.
For sure. And I think that's what made it hard to actually figure out like a solid plan because we had so many options, right? Like,
and we didn't get to walk through
with this thing, and it's going to be okay either way.
Yeah.
Like we can sell it, we can, pay some short-term capital gains or business expenses, and we can come out with, I don't know, a few $1,000 a piece, probably 10 to 20 grand each.
Yeah. And at the time, interest rates were very low, so it made sense to all of 2021. Almost everything I was touching, it was like, burr. This would be a great burr. We got to keep it. Low interest rates, sky high rents. That was going through my mind, and I was really excited too to see what this ADU in the garage looked like. That we could never see.
Like I said, I was just excited to get into the house. Like I didn't care what it looked like. I wanted to get started, but I think I changed my mind once we actually entered the house.
So let's share the screen again and show some photos, shall we?
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Sharing the screen again.
And while you're doing that, I'll just kind of give a little bit of background. Like I said, so we bought it in August of 2021. We were not allowed access into it until I believe December 1st or 2nd, right before the tenants moved out. And it was a doozy. So if you're sharing the screen right now,
I am.
Go back to that last photo if you don't mind, the first one. So you notice in the far corner of the ceiling,
right here,
right there, you're going to see a big bulge.
The ceiling's falling down, and I wish I had a photo of the master bedroom because it was really bad in there.
Yeah, for sure.
Unfortunately, we weren't thinking far enough ahead that we're going to do presentations on this house someday, or else we would have got a lot more.
Of, like what things were and everything in there.
Yep.
So that was the original kitchen. It was,
and there's some bowing going on in here. It's kind of hard to tell from the photos, but what was going on was, and look at under the sink was just a disastrous, moist mess.
So moist homes,
lots of leaks. Yep. It's always a good idea to take a photo of these tags if you ever see them on a manufactured home. If unfortunately you're buying one, because you're going to need these numbers for later. And it's a good idea just to get them
for sure.
Yeah. Here, this was kind of cool though about the property because it was so large. It had multiple different entrances. Multiple as in two. But it had a full access for like an RV on one side of the house with RV hookups, which was just awesome. And then there's this big old carport in the front and a detached garage on the right side of the house with another driveway.
Man, that thing was ugly before we renovated it.
Yep. There was an extra bar sink right off the living room, right next to the kitchen. It's kind of unnecessary, but I still think it's kind of cool.
Yeah, I think it's cool.
A lot of utilization of different. There's sinks galore in this house.
Yeah, I like the oven, the range combo too. Like, it was so bizarre. Like, we couldn't figure out anything to put in that because we have to replace the oven, obviously.
Yeah. What do we do? Shelves?
Yeah, I think we did shelves there, and I'm like, there's just no way we're going to get another one of these to fit in here. This one was made in like 1978. I don't think they make them.
Yeah,
anymore.
and these are old appliances, so
Sure.
What we decided to do is just like cut the cabinets to fit in a slide-in range right here, and we made it work. You'll see in the photos, the after photos. I think we actually did a really good job of the renovation. We just spent, I want to say 6 times more than we anticipated.
Yeah, it was around there, I think. So
yeah, and we'll get into why here. You know, part of the that heater wasn't working, by the way. Yeah, normal wear and tear. Yeah, right. Look at it. Clearly, obvious leaks back here. There's leaks on everything that was plumbing was leaking. So the second fridge spot.
By the way, anyone flipping a house, I just want to throw this out there too. If you ever see a house that has a fridge in it, and either the fridge has been unplugged or just sitting there, do yourself a favor and just don't open it.
Yeah, everyone's so tempted to just be like, "Oh, this fridge is unplugged. Let's open it and stink up the house."
Yeah, it's the most foul-smelling thing you'll ever smell in your life. Yeah. This bedroom was unique. The bed was actually going through the subfloor. The
bed was going through. That's how weak these floors were.
Yeah.
Yes, it's hard to see from the photos, but just like you said, the bed feet were just falling through the floor because they were so moist and rotted out. And it wasn't just in this room.
Instantly, like within 2 minutes of going in this house, I was like, oh, this is way more than both of us bargained for.
Yeah. So the ceilings in half of the house were caving in. Trusses were caving in.
Yep.
And we were falling through the floors in multiple rooms. And we're not exaggerating.
No, yeah.
We were actually falling. There's a kitty that came with the house. There's always a cat that comes with the house.
Yep.
You got to get used to that fixing and flipping. And we didn't have access to that garage right away. It was locked up.
Yep. The owners of the house were actually living in the backyard in an RV while we were doing the renovations there.
Yeah, they got to stay for like an extra month or so.
Yeah, something like that.
I think that's what we agreed. But they played it off as if there's tenants back there that would like to stay an extra month, and that's what we agreed to before we closed. The tenants happened to be them.
The owners, yes.
Yeah. But there was a lot of room back there, a lot of carports, RV hookups. It was very kind of junky, but it was definitely usable, lots of usable space. Half cars.
Multiple half cars. I believe there are a few.
If you're looking at the photos, you'll get to see all this stuff. Oh, you know what? Okay. If you're going to fix and flip homes, best investment ever, go spend $7 to $10,000 on a big dump trailer that has the lift capabilities, the little dump button. Absolutely the best investment. When my brother bought this, I thought he was kind of crazy and just spending too much, but boy, was he right. He made the best investment ever, and that was, I don't know, 7 years ago or so, and it's just always being used.
Sure.
It's always being used on every site. They're very tough. I think he spent $7,000 at the time. You can get them financed very easily through insurance companies.
Yep.
Like State Farm will finance these trailers to contractors because they know that those loans never go bad because they're so utilized.
Right.
It was very interesting. We had a guest speaker at one of our REIs, and it was an insurance agent. And he just happened to talk about these dump trailers and how easy they are to give loans to contractors on because they're the least defaulted loans ever.
Right. Typically, if you have something like that, you are utilizing it and either making money off it or like needing it on a day-to-day basis, so you're not letting your loan default.
Yeah, so very wise on my brother's part to buy that dump trailer.
I think
We've
that's
been using it for years.
Too, Nick, but I also think like for simplicity, if somebody doesn't have a truck or somebody doesn't want to do the dump trailers, just rent one of the big, 50, 500 cubic yards or whatever it is.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, if you don't do this regularly. I'm saying if you want to get into regularly flipping houses as a career and you're doing more than like 2 houses a year, totally worth the investment to get a dump trailer, because you will save an insane amount of money.
Sure.
Because if you're always hiring out the demo, that can get very expensive. But if you're always doing it yourself, or you got a crew, that's usually a good time to really be involved with the construction, because at that time you'll have the best understanding of how the house is put together, and then you can make decisions on how you're going to finish it.
Right.
That's why I always kind of encourage being a part of the demo process.
Sure. And one thing I will notice just from the projects like we've done together, like you guys have the dump trailer and I love it. But when you're on 5 or 6 different properties and you have one dump trailer, it kind of becomes like, okay, you're throwing the stuff outside and then you're throwing the stuff back in the dump trailer and you're almost double working versus, but again, like it just depends on what everyone's numbers is, of course, and what everyone, like how fast you want to get it done, right? Because it's not always a fire that you need to put out. But it's nice to just have a dump truck available whenever, whether it's on your truck or somebody just drops it off. Make sure you have a way to put all your crap in it for sure.
Well, you make a good point. The best way to avoid that is just not to do more than one project at a time.
Right.
You'll be so much more efficient. You may feel like you're leaving money on the table, but if you're doing 2 or more projects at a time, you're being inefficient. Right. And you're going to maybe not lose money, but you'll be so much more efficient if you could just focus on one project at a time.
Sure. Yeah. And I agree with that. Like and it also depends on the size of your crew and the size of your liability for it, right? Like
and your ambition.
How much do I want to have my people at this property versus how much do I need to have people at this other property? Because both things need to get done at the same time. Just depends on the crew. So.
Yep. Sorry, if you're watching, I was stuck on one photo the whole time. But here's they kind of built a roof on top of the roof here.
Yeah.
If that wasn't a clue. It's kind of hard to see. Oh, okay. There are some images here. So here's the master bathroom. You can see that there were many holes that had to be cut out and replaced.
Yep.
And then we start getting into, I'll stop sharing my screen here. We'll go back to us.
Yeah.
And we can go back to this here. Okay.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. Welcome back.
Yeah.
We're here.
So obviously the project was a lot bigger undertaking than we were anticipating. It is kind of hard to show in some of those photos, like the actual damages that were in this house, but it was unlivable.
Oh, completely. Yeah, these poor tenants, they just had to live that way for years.
Right.
But
because the owners didn't, take care of the property
or fix anything. Yeah.
Yeah.
It just, and you'll run into that when you're in this business long enough. There's just people that's just what their way of, maybe they just don't have higher standards. They don't care. They have other things going on in life.
Yeah.
But those are typically the properties that you'll end up with.
Yeah. And these people weren't like, I'm not going to say they're not like professional landlords. They're just people that owned a house that wanted to make some money. And props to them for doing that, because I think it's a really good option. But make sure you take care of your rentals and you don't be a slumlord in the process.
Make sure.
Yeah.
So, when we got in, you were part of the demo on this house, right? What was going through your mind?
Man, the first things, literally, like, I think the first day you and I went there, we did a demo day before anybody, and I think we pulled up some carpet, and I think we raked some leaves, and we just did a couple things, but it was like, I think we bit off more than we could chew. This project was a huge undertaking.
Yeah. And I already had, 7 or so going on the sidelines, and I was just like, another gut job? Jeez.
Here we go.
Can't get away from this.
Yeah. I was still excited, though, because, like, how I learn is by doing. Like, you can talk about me until you're blue in the face. But until, like, I actually get my hands on something and figure out, like, what needs to be done, I have no idea. Yeah.
And in that situation, we got into it. Obviously, it wasn't what was being represented at all. We did get, screwed a little bit, but we had to own up to it, and it's not like we could return the house.
Right. Yeah.
We just had to suck it up and do it.
That was exactly it. Like, I think both of our mentalities were like, plug our nose and dive in. Like, all right, what needs to be done? Like, let's just get it done.
It's not like we're going to walk away from the place.
Yeah. We'd lose $25,000 if we did that.
Yeah. So instead we lost a lot more.
Just kidding. So instead of losing 25, we decided to lose 120.
Yeah. So good point. I think we put $120,000.
Actually, all in, I think we're 150 in.
150 in?
Yeah.
Oh, if you include the down payment?
I think so, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I don't know what our payoffs are when we refinance. I'm sure we'll get into some of that, but like,
I think
we put a pretty penny into this thing.
Yeah. So what we ended up having to do was we had to replace everything from the walls, on the top of the walls up. We didn't necessarily have to gut all the interior walls. There was a lot in like some of the bathrooms that we gutted and redid. But I'm talking, we opened up the ceilings and there was wet, damaged trusses.
That was
moldy, wet, damaged trusses everywhere. And we had to cut it all out. Brand new roof, new sheeting, new trusses had to be built, and new insulation.
Yep.
It was a lot of work.
Mold remediation, which was that part was easy, but
It's easy when you just take it all
it's
out.
easy when you just rip off the roof and put a new roof on.
put it in your dumpster and keep driving it away.
Yeah, but what I will say about like the ceilings and the insulation, that was the grossest thing I've ever done in my life.
Oh yeah, was it falling on you?
Oh yeah, so like
Because the insulation's got like a vapor barrier.
Yep.
And then you poke it because it's full of water. It just rains on you.
yeah. So backstory a little bit. Like anyone who's ever been in a manufactured home, they know that the ceilings aren't. It's not drywall.
No.
It's more like
It's like these panels.
they're just like panels almost
Like
made out of like cheap
commercial
plywood basically, or
like ceiling tiles,
Yeah.
like commercial large ceiling tiles.
yeah. And it's just it's definitely not like 5/8 drywall, which should be on the ceiling. But you know, we got through these panels, we started ripping it off, and like you see the bowing of the trusses, and you see the insulation just sagging, especially once we took out the ceiling. That sag became even more apparent. So the ceiling was like holding some of it up, but yeah, it was sagging down a good 6 to 12 inches in certain spots. It was pretty gross. And like I said, so with the insulation, with it being all wet since the ceiling or the roof wasn't. That we're sharing the screen here. So if you look at the second photo,
there it
all
is.
that black right there where the cursor is. That was
Yum.
just wet insulation water. So you know, I poke a couple holes in it, and it just starts leaking everywhere because once you pop a balloon, it just kind of goes wherever it feels like. Like we're not really looking at the flow of water here, but buckets upon buckets upon buckets, and that was just the most disgusting thing, like I said, I've ever done in my life.
Yeah. So we put a lot of money into this house, and fortunately, since I had a construction company, we didn't spend as much as a normal person would have spent. A normal person would have spent a lot more. And $120,000 to spend on a remodel of a 1,700 square foot manufactured home is a lot to spend. But those were all true costs, just paying employees and paying for materials to get brought in. And that's about it. I don't know if we subbed much. Do we have many subs? I think some plumbers maybe did some rough-in plumbing.
And you had a couple guys that weren't on your paid squad. Like you had Dave come in and do a few things. And,
but we were still paying him. But we were still just paying him by the hour. Right. He didn't bid the job because sometimes to save money in construction, sometimes it's just more beneficial, depending on the type of person you have, just to pay a contractor by the hour and bring materials.
Right.
And you can save thousands of dollars doing it that way, because otherwise the contractor has to guess how much he's going to spend on materials, and he's usually going to guess high.
Yep.
And then if he has to go use his own money to go to the store and buy stuff, you know he's going to mark it up.
Oh, sure.
So they've got to add another couple $1,000 in fluff when they're doing this kind of stuff.
Sure.
Just so that they don't lose money.
Right. Nobody wants to lose money on these deals.
But a lot of contractors, actually really prefer, like, oh yeah, you just pay me by the hour and then you bring materials here. Then I don't have to do any guesswork, math. I don't have to go to the store.
Yep.
I'm all in.
Keeps
I love
me working
working.
too, yeah.
Yeah. A lot of contractors actually would prefer to do that. But sometimes you get contractors that will just juice the clock. Oh, you're going to pay me by the hour? I'm going to take my time.
Right. It's a double-edged sword for sure.
Yeah.
As long as you find the right people willing to do the right work for the right cost, I think you're going to be fine.
But shout out to Dave Holden, though.
Yeah.
I doubt he listens, but man, he was awesome, and he did not juice the clock. That guy's great.
Yeah. Dave taught me so much on that job, just because like I was on this property too, doing as much of the demo and reno as I could or help with. Dave was willing to teach me a lot, and he was willing to teach me how to put these trusses in and how to put the ceilings back up and how to put the insulation in and just all these things. Like, now that I know how to do it, again, well, we talked about earlier, like I got my hands on it, I got my hands dirty with it. That way I can do it on future projects. Not like I want to, but I can.
Yeah. And his communication with me was excellent.
Mm-hmm.
Constant updates of, hey, here's where we are now. This is about how long it's going to take before I'm going to go home to get this done, and yada, yada, yada. But yeah, we couldn't be more lucky to get somebody like that to come in and help us out, because my crew, you know, like I said, I think I was doing 7 other projects at the time. So I couldn't just have my crew stop what they were doing to come work on this house that was going to take a long time.
Right. That we weren't anticipating it to take a long time. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's where it got weird too, because, you know, like when I came into this project, I think my job was almost to come in with the wholesale fee for the wholesalers.
Yeah.
That was basically what I was doing, sans $5,000, but I came up with most of it. And then as soon as we got into this, we were both like, this thing is going to need a lot more than we thought.
Yeah, so I worked on it too.
Yep. We both.
Yeah, we were just like, hey, we own it 50-50. Let's just do what we can.
Yeah. and right, I think it was a pretty good partnership. We value and respect each other enough to both, you know, put forth that work. Right? Yeah. And I know the original agreement, I think in our JV or whatever, this one wasn't a JV. This was just, did we JV it at all?
No, I think it was just I think we just had a verbal agreement or something that you're going to be bringing 20 or 25 grand.
Yep.
And that was it.
Yep.
And you did a lot more than that.
Yeah.
Which I've got to commend you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm used to that, but
right. But like, it just, you know, get super critical with your contracts and what everyone's rules are for sure.
But you were one of the rare partners that I had at the time that actually stepped up, and you knew, okay, this isn't what we anticipated. I'm going to bring more money to the closing, I'm going to bring more money to the table, and I'm going to help out more. And I really appreciate that about you. Yeah. You took ownership because you were an owner
of the
property, and you didn't just rely on me to fix everything like some other partners in the past.
We're not going into those ones, of course.
No.
But, the good thing was, like, I was able to help. And the reason why I was able to help, and I think I've talked about this in previous episodes as well, my wife and I bought a house. We got a HELOC on our house within a year of owning it. So we bought the house, and by January 2022, we had a HELOC going. So there was a minor gap of December 21 to January 22.
Yeah, and that's right in the mix when we were working on this house. Was in January.
Exactly. And
January,
so
February,
we were able
March.
to get a pretty big HELOC and able to thrust our investments forward. Rates at the HELOC at the time were really good, so I think they were a point above prime, which was like 3.2. And then, so I just lent money back to the project. Like, whatever you need, let's just get it done. I don't care.
Yep. And then, of course, I had to figure out how to come up with a lot of extra money. I was anticipating about 20 grand initially, right? That's what we were going to put into the repairs.
Yep.
About 20. 1,700 square foot house, cosmetic. That sounded reasonable. I can't remember honestly where I came up with the money, but we ended up spending a lot more.
Yep.
I don't know if, how much extra did you bring? Do you remember?
So if my numbers serve me correct, I think total I put into this project around 60,000.
60 grand.
Give
okay.
or take a little. I think you ended up putting about 90.
Okay.
So
yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, because I think our total expenses were 150, so I guess the numbers would make sense off that.
Yeah. And I honestly don't remember where I came up with the money at the time. I might, some of it was probably credit card, some of it was probably house flipping income or real estate agent income. The nice thing about having multiple streams of income is that sometimes sometimes it's easy to forget where the money came from.
You have no idea where it comes from. You just know you're able to get it, right?
Yeah. But eventually, over time, I think that sounds about right. About 90 grand.
Yeah.
So that couple of weeks of renovation turned into 3 months or so. And why don't we show people what the finished product looked like?
It ended up like going almost 5 or 6, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I mean, like, nothing ever closes on time, and nothing.
I think we had it on the market by April, though. Didn't we have it under contract with Josh?
I thought it was. I don't know if we had it under contract or not. It was not done at that time, though.
Okay.
We were still working on it.
You know what? The pictures will help.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm looking at the wrong photos. This is one. Okay. Here we go, guys. Thanks for your patience.
Yeah.
So here's what the finished product ended up looking like. This is kind of mid-construction. I think this was in March.
Yeah.
We got all the ceilings done,
the
walls were primed, ready for paint. We actually didn't really, we should have mowed the yard before we took listing photos, but we had it under contract with Josh and we just didn't feel like it was necessary, right? Because we just wanted some after, wanted some after photos.
Yeah.
Otherwise we totally, it did end up going on the MLS because Josh's financing fell through.
We did end up getting more photos. I did go back and do a reshoot of the exterior, so.
I remember mowing that lawn a few times.
Yeah. So obviously the outside looks much better. There's the EDU right there. Everything's just got a nice white coat of paint on it.
White with black trims, it's super easy.
Yep.
You can see in the backyard, there was still a lot of stuff to kind of take. I think eventually we got a junkyard to come take that half car away.
Yep, correct.
So this was before we kind of detailed out the lawn a little bit with better mowing and whacking. That was a lot of work.
We're still like doing the final touches on everything.
But the inside looked much better. So fresh carpet and paint makes a huge difference. We left the windows, but we swapped out the light fixtures. This is actually all original stuff here. We just painted it. And then we even took off the hardware, spray painted it black, and put it right back on.
Oil rub bronze is what
Oil rub bronze. Is that what we sprayed? Okay.
I painted all those myself, so yes.
Nice.
Yeah.
We replaced the registers, those little $12 floor registers. And this turned out really nice looking.
Yeah, there's my baby blue Prius in the back. That's cool.
Oh, yeah. That flooring was, I think, from Costco, maybe. We did a backsplash that extended all the way to where this bar area was, and it was unnecessary to have another sink there, so we just had the countertop.
Just another thing that can leak, so we got rid of it.
But I believe we left the rough plumbing under there in case somebody wanted to put in an extra bar stool. Bar. We used butcher block countertops. Right near. Great thing about this house was it was right next to Home Depot.
Yep.
So that's where we got all the materials.
Literally like 4 minutes away from Home Depot. That's a really good place if you're ever looking to buy a flip. See how close this hardware store is.
Yeah. And what I've been doing a lot lately, Amazon has such a bigger selection of materials. So I've been actually ordering lately on my projects. Half my materials come from Amazon. They just get delivered right to the house.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah. And they're way cheaper, way cheaper than Lowe's or Home Depot on some items.
Yep. And then you can, like you said, have it delivered directly to your flip property or your renovation property. So
here's where we cut into the cabinets, and we just slid in a range, and then we turned this into just a shelving area where the old double ovens were on the wall. We kept the old panel, but just painted them, and it looks fine.
Yeah, no, it looks really good in there. I was really worried about that when we started, honestly.
Yeah.
I know you said you were gonna we're gonna, and in my head, I wanted to make this thing so perfect.
Yeah.
Which is a mistake because we would have been over renovating for the area.
Yes. Painting the golden trim on these mirrors was so tedious, but it got done. We brought in a double vanity from Costco, and it was the heaviest thing in the world because Costco is nearby as well.
Yep.
That master ended up looking really nice. We took out the sink in the laundry area as well. It's just unnecessary.
That's the room where the bed was going through the subfloor, by the way.
Yes, we got a new subfloor. Last minute, we swapped out the bathroom walls in the second bathroom for tile here.
We were going to do a tub insert, and then we decided to go tile at the end.
Yep.
So nice little property for sure.
Nice property.
Yeah.
Yep. And
see, there's if you go back to the yard's all mowed now.
Yep. Mowed yard looks way better. Yeah, before you throw something on the MLS, mow the yard.
Yeah.
Don't be like us.
But we weren't planning on having it on the MLS.
Exactly, because we had it under contract with one of the guys on our team. And then we're going to talk about that too.
Yeah.
We had it under contract for $400,000, and it went under contract very quickly.
Very quickly.
For a second time.
What was the original price we got it under contract for once we got it actual on MLS contract?
It was $400,000.
$400,000? Okay.
Yeah, we listed it for $399,000. We had it under contract for $400,000. And then this was we listed it in June of 2022, and rates were starting to go up at that time.
Yep.
They started going up pretty, in April, I think, and they were climbing pretty fast.
Yeah.
And it made that buyer that was under contract all of a sudden not qualify because the rates he did qualify, and then like the rates were going up like crazy, and then he had to back out because all of a sudden he wasn't approved, like just within a few days.
Right.
And then we had it under contract a third time. Same thing happened.
Yeah, I think we had it under contract for 415 that time because
even higher.
Somebody went even higher because they were
people were
trying
competing
to get
against it.
And looking
and
at
it was under contract a fourth time.
It was,
and it fell through.
So just to kind of go back to all the contract stuff real quick though, some of you might be looking at this or listening to this podcast and thinking like a manufactured home in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho for $400,000 on real land seems expensive. And normally you'd be right, but that land itself has so much value. Again, with the ADU, with RV parking, and with a basically fully renovated home.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, we eventually took it off the market in August of 2022, a year after we bought it, because it fell through a fourth time. For the same kind of thing, because the summer of last year was insane. Rates were shooting up like crazy. The market was changing. Buyers were still fiercely wanting to purchase properties, but all of a sudden it was just like, oh, I don't qualify anymore? Wait, my payment's going to be that?
Right.
I think the fourth time it was because the interest rate was just so high that, and it was higher on manufactured homes. And this is another reason why you probably shouldn't buy a manufactured home is because when you go to resell it, buyers can't pay as much because they're paying sometimes almost a point higher in interest just because it is a manufactured home.
Yep.
There's many reasons why you shouldn't buy a manufactured home. We're just throwing out a couple.
Yeah, we're just spitfiring a couple here. We could do a whole episode on why not to, but we should actually get somebody in here who does it.
Yeah.
But maybe episode for another day.
Yeah. Well, I bought enough to say just don't do it. So anyway, after the fourth time it fell through, I remember you and I had a conversation and we're just like, what do you think of just renting it?
Right. And all this time, keep in mind too, like we had our hard money payments.
Yeah, it was $1,800 a month.
Right. Which wasn't like in the grand scheme of things like the most expensive, but it
was a year now.
Holding it, right? That's a long time.
Yeah, it was a year of almost $2,000 a month. That's almost $20,000 that we spent just in interest payments over a year. It adds up.
Yeah. And especially like when it goes under contract and you're excited for it to close and get your paycheck, and then it falls out of contract and then it goes again. And this is during like a 3-month period, like we said, where we're just eating $7,000 basically.
Yeah. Yeah, it was nuts.
Yeah. So yeah, we made the decision to just keep it as a rental, and it's been great so far. Yeah.
So what we initially wanted to do was we wanted to fence off the portion with the garage and the backyard and only rent out the house.
Yep.
And offer the house up for like $1,900, something like that, because the market rents were really high. And we were going to raise the money eventually and build out the ADU a little bit better in the garage because it wasn't really done right.
Right.
And then also potentially rent out the backyard to an RVer. So we wanted to have 3 separate rentals out of this property.
Yeah.
And I remember my property manager, the very first guy he showed, said, hey, this guy just he'd like to have the garage. He'd like to not have an RV in the backyard. He's willing to pay $2,800 a month. And you and I were just like,
sold.
Yeah, let's not build out an ADU right now. Well, sorry, we just put up a fence. I think he took the fence down or built a gate or something.
Yeah. But either way, like it's a multifunctional property where we have that freedom to do a few things with it. You know, that guy wanted the whole property, and he's paying for the whole property. So
yeah, and so we were a little bit, we had a lot of cash into this property. We went to the lender that we initially got the hard money loan from, and he was also offering longer term financing up to 5 years at 8%. And we said, hey, can we get some of that sweet 5-year 8% money? And can we get a little cash out? This thing's worth more.
Yeah.
And we had appraisals.
We did.
We had appraisals because it fell through 4 times with 4 different buyers saying, hey, value's $400 now.
Yeah, value
and
was
so
$400.
he took that value and he gave us, I think, $290,000 or something.
$280,000, I think is what
280?
it was. Yeah.
So he was still conservative.
And again, this is the same hard money lender that we used to actually finance the property the first time.
Yeah.
So he originally had the loan for $189,000. We did renovations for it, a lot of renovations, and the property appraised for $400,000. Right. So now he was willing to do a refi and give us cash back.
Yes, cash out refi.
Right. So we got another loan for, it was either 280 or 290, somewhere in that area.
Yep.
And I think our payments on it are like 22 or something like that.
Yeah, I think we got like 90 grand or something, right?
Yeah, we ended up getting 60.
60? Oh, that's how much we got. Okay.
Yeah, because I remember getting
Maybe
a
it was a lower
$30,000 check and like feeling very good about that. And you got a 30 because we're like, let's just split it right now and we'll figure it all out later.
Maybe the loan was 2,700 or 270 or something like that then.
It was something like that.
If we got 60 back.
Yeah. It was really great to get money back in my pocket. Obviously, we still have money into the deal, which means we still have equity in the deal. So,
which is fine.
Yeah, if we needed to sell it today, tomorrow, we have an appraisal for $400,000, and we'd get more money back, or we can just keep renting it for the next 5 years and see where it takes us.
Yeah. So it's important to note too, like when you are initially flipping a property, and then you got to go decide, okay, I got to rent it out. You do got to make a few more improvements. Just some things to note. Usually blinds is very common. So I went and installed some blinds. We got a refrigerator. Went to Costco nearby, put in a refrigerator. I don't know what else. Maybe that was about it. But blinds, a refrigerator. I think that was about all.
We didn't put in a washer dryer, I don't think.
No. Washer dryers, tenants should be able to bring their own washer dryers.
Sure.
That's something you don't want to have to maintain regularly. And I mean, if a buyer can pay $2,800 a month, they should have their own washer dryer.
I agree.
And they're still there. This was so now it's November of 2023, and we still have our $2,800 a month coming in.
Yep.
And our payment on that house is what, $2,100 or so?
Yeah,
22?
it's. I think it was like 21 or 22. I have to go back and look at it. But
so we've been cash flowing a little bit. Now we're not paying off any of the principal yet. We've just been kind of saving. We haven't dived into our cash at all, but we've just been kind of letting this account grow as we need, and then pay expenses. I think we've only had to do kind of 2 big repairs since we've owned the property.
The AC for sure.
We had to swap out the AC almost immediately.
Yep.
And then Avista, the power company, took down a bunch of trees in the backyard and left a bunch of wood out there. And it was bad. It was a lot worse than what they let on.
Sure.
So it cost us almost $1,200 just to get a lot of the wood hauled away, even though they had people coming for a whole summer to get wood.
Right.
People on Craigslist and stuff, and it was just so much of it because there were so many trees that were taken down by Avista.
Sure. And that's weird. They didn't even really give us a good explanation. They're just like, hey, we're coming to cut down trees on your property, and then they just left their mess.
Yeah. I don't even think they gave them a heads up. They just started taking down trees.
I think you're right, actually. I was like, I don't remember hearing about it until it was too late.
Yeah, that happened to another property of mine. There was no heads up, and then all of a sudden it was unfortunate too, because this other property had like a nice big privacy tree. I know it was gone, and
they took it down.
House looked so different. I was so disappointed.
Yeah. So that's something to think about too when you're buying these properties. Like, obviously you might have big, mature, beautiful trees. Doesn't stop the power company from saying you can't have those.
Yeah. Screw yourself.
Screw yourself. We're gonna leave our mess too. So whatever.
Yeah. So where do we stand now with this property? What do you want to do?
Oh, good question, man. Like I'm letting the waves take me where I need to go with it. I am not in a hurry to sell.
Okay.
If you want to sell, let's do it.
Okay.
I've learned so much from this property that we can cash flow, we can continue collecting our rents. Obviously, we play rent management and everything like that. So your cash flow number that we talked about isn't your net cash flow. That's just gross.
Yeah.
But we have options, and I think the fact that both of us are not in a hurry to sell this because it is a cool property.
Yeah.
One day, if we decide to keep it long term, or this tenant wants to move out, I think we should redo the ADU.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
I think that's a good idea.
And I think we should, talk about what we were doing with the RV, make a specific boxed off kind of RV spot and kind of Frankenstein this yard a little bit.
Hey, why not?
Yeah,
people need housing.
It's a half
and
acre. It's a big enough house
property
where you can have an RV, an ADU, and a main house, and nobody will ever have to talk to each other.
Yep, that's true.
Yep. Just make sure you get your P.O. box because there's only one mailbox.
Yes, good point.
What do you want to do with it?
I want to just let the tenant stay there as long as he wants.
Mm-hmm.
If we keep getting $2,800 a month for that, we were able to capture that when rents are high, and rents have come down since then. So the longer they want to stay in that house, the longer we can squeeze it, the better.
We did give them a little bit of a discount on rent this year, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, was it $100? Well,
yeah,
because was it $100?
I think it's $100 a month.
Oh, okay.
And that's okay too. Like, I mean,
but the market's come way down.
Yeah, the market's come
that,
way down.
That house should only be renting for $2,000 a month, maybe.
Yeah,
maybe.
And again, if that comes to that point where like we're only going to be able to get $2,000 in rent for the thing,
then we got to Frankenstein it.
We either got to A, Frankenstein it, or resell it, and that'll put us in a position to do one or the other.
Yeah, and it's nice to have options when you have equity.
Yep, 100%. Options equal equity, or equity equals options is what I always say.
True.
My dad says
and
that
cash flow too.
Yeah.
We have cash flow and equity. Puts you in a great position to not really have to go one way or another.
Yeah, and we can also leverage this property if we wanted, right? So if we wanted to buy another property, we could take a cross collateralization out on the equity in the property.
That's true. Yeah, there's $130,000 of equity sitting there.
And we could start a brand new project where we're completely overwhelmed with because we didn't get access to the property.
At least we had those options.
Right.
Yeah.
But all in all, I'm still happy to be a part of this project. I know it was kind of a lot to deal with, and it was just another thing for you to deal with.
Yeah.
But all's well that ends well, especially when you buy right.
Yes. Yeah, we still buy it right. Even now, if we got an inspection, which if they allowed us to walk through it and get an inspection, knowing what we know today, would you still have wanted to buy it for the amount of money we bought it for?
I would have negotiated further.
Yeah, me too.
I would have, and that's like we still got a good deal on it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, like the wholesalers got paid their fair share. Like it doesn't matter if they got paid $25,000, $50,000, $200,000, as long as your numbers work at the end of that. I don't care how much we pay them, and like I said, I probably would have negotiated a little bit further.
Mm-hmm.
I probably would have been down in like the 160.
Okay.
Firm. Let's get this done.
Yeah.
At that time, but
yeah. I probably would have passed.
Yeah,
knowing what I know.
Knowing what you know,
But hey, still, we're able to buy real estate. We got it secured. Mm-hmm. We have money into it. It's a forced savings account.
Yep.
It's not the worst.
Plus, we get tax benefits for having it, right?
We do.
Yeah.
We get the greatest tax benefits ever.
We share a K1.
We have our own K1s.
We do have our own K1s.
That's how that works.
We share.
Yeah. So let us know what you guys think. Let us know if I think this is the first time we've done a long case study on a podcast like this.
Yep.
And it might have been a little bit janky with the YouTube video, sharing my screen for maybe sitting on a photo way too long. This is our first time. Give us some grace, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we did a good job describing everything, so if anyone is listening, just know it went from really gross to not so gross.
Yes. But the name stayed the same.
The name stayed the same.
Moist Homes LLC.
So yeah, man, let's take this out here. First of all, I want to thank everybody for watching or listening to the podcast. We definitely appreciate it. If anybody is listening and gets any value out of this, or watching it gets value, please leave us a review and a 5-star review. It really helps gain the show traction and helps others who are interested in the show kind of find what we're doing. And we just love networking with you all, and we love talking with you all, and very appreciative you're here. So
we're so glad you listen.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Awesome.
See you next week, huh?
You better.
Thank you so much for checking out the Investor Shed podcast. If you enjoyed your time, make sure to leave a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Follow along on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram at The Investor Shed for shorts and promos about each episode. Do you want to be a guest or know someone who has great real estate investing advice and stories? Reach out to us at theinvestorshed@gmail.com.